What is going on, golf fans? It's your boy Luke here with our DFS live stream. This time we've got the Scottish Open, a collaboration event, a little bit of a, let's say, different event because a lot of new names to choose from on the fantasy side. So really looking forward to breaking this down and going to look a little bit different than most of my live streams here because, of course, not really going to have all of my picks on the screen. We're not going to talk about my entire player pool, just more about the actual strategy at hand. Of course, we're going to go over all of your live questions. I will deep dive any players that you guys throw down in chat. But in terms of all of my ownership projections, all of that, it is still going to be behind the paywall, as a lot of the content has been. But still want to bring you guys a great preview here. Still give you guys all of the strategy talk that you need. So you can see a few of you already down there in chat. We've got Chris Palmer, who has a little bit of worries about his cash lineup, it seems. I guess we'll have to get that straightened out for you, Chris, but that's what this live stream is for. We got Gary Kerr, who's saying, what's up? What's going on, Gary? Hopefully you're doing well here this Wednesday evening. Adolfo says, would you consider fading the whole 10K range in a large field GPP? I think that would be bold, especially because the 5 players up there are like 1 through 5 in my modeling. So I'm not sure I could do it personally. Is it viable? I mean, if you expect somebody in that 9K range to win, then sure, it's certainly something that could take down GPPs. But I do think it's a little bit out there. It's a little bit risky, to say the least. You got Street here who says the biggest problem this week is trying to figure out who's here for the 2-day practice and who's here to win. I would agree. The one thing I say kind of gives these players a little bit more motivation is that the FedEx Cup points are a little bit boosted for this event, and the purse is elevated for most of the PGA Tour events. So especially for those mid-tier players, maybe the guys that aren't in the top 5 of the official World Golf Rankings, I still think they have a lot to play for this week. But you could argue, Scotty Scheffler, guys like a Justin Thomas, for example, might be there for the 2-day practice round. But who knows? We'll have to see. Obviously, time will tell with that. But I agree that there could be something there. We've got Chris who says, what 2 guys would you start with in cash? So we'll talk about that when we go through it a little bit. 2 of my core picks, to be honest with you, Chris. It'd be 2 guys there in the 9K range with my core picks. But we'll talk about that when we actually go through the poll. Nick Marr says, woohoo, what's going on? And which Molinari do you like better? He's coming with the great questions right away. I personally like Francesco a little bit more, particularly because he showed some form over the last month there. But I like both of them. I have both of them in my pool, or at least did at one point. I think right now I'm down to just Francesco, but I've been teetering on adding Eduardo to the board. He's a stud player in his own right, and he's played well at this golf course, which is obviously a little bit of a boost. But let's go ahead and start this with a look at the weather, what you guys are all here for. And frankly, there is a little bit of a weather split, but I'm not going to go overboard on it. So in the morning, there is certainly better conditions than what we expect for the afternoon wave tomorrow. I'm closer to like 10 to 12 miles an hour in terms of winds, and then closer to like 18 to 20 in the afternoon. Now, we saw this a few days ago. It hasn't changed all that much. The huge change has been on Friday and then over the weekend, where conditions absolutely just hit the fan. I mean, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath out there. My guess of a winning score of close to 20 under par seems a little bit out of reach at this point. While I do think there's going to be birdies to be had, when you're dealing with 30 miles an hour wind gusts, I mean, in the morning, in the mid-20s at the very least, that is hard to say the least. And even a golf course that surrenders a bunch of birdies, you're going to see scoring up close to probably even par, maybe even a little bit over par around the Renaissance Club. So the one major change I'd say would just be in the scoring conditions, right? I was looking a lot at birdie or better percentage because I thought we'd need a winning score of maybe 20 to 25 under par. I've adjusted that down closer to like maybe 15 under par. I still think you're going to see scoring out there, particularly for the players that are a little bit more adjusted to the wind, but you're also going to see quite a bit of carnage, perhaps even a cut line that's over par. And even with 160 players, which is the largest field that we have on the entire season. Now, in terms of trying to get these guys in the morning tomorrow, I definitely have an emphasis on them, but it's not the end all be all, particularly with guys in that 7K range that are solid players on the DP World Tour that are used to playing in these windy conditions. But I do think you might see like a half a stroke bias between the 2 waves, maybe close to like 3/4 of a stroke, something like that there on Thursday. I don't know if it's enough to really sway those bottom tier guys. Now, if you're talking about stud tier options where, we're already trying to, split hairs, trying to decide between players, then I think maybe the AM PM wave is more impactful than the guys that are in the 6 and 7K range. So for me, it's a much bigger deciding factor with the guys that I'm going after and actually playing this week and some of the fades that I ended up making. And guys in that 6K range, I'm almost ignoring it. I'm just not worrying about it all that much because on Friday, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath, but in the morning, maybe slightly less of one, right? It's about 7 miles an hour difference in terms of the winds. Same thing with the wind gusts for much of the day there. And in the first day, right, it's that same difference, right? It's like from 12 to 20 miles an hour, the wind gusts from like 13 up to 20 miles an hour, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe like a slightly bigger difference there on Thursday, but it's not all that much, right? I know the numbers look all that much bigger because they're yellow over here. Oh, woo, they have a 3 next to their name, right? But they're just a few numbers off 20, right? A few digits off 20. So just don't look into it that much. I do expect there to be maybe a slight advantage tomorrow morning. But I don't know if it's anything that I'm personally going all in on. I might have like as per usual, guys, I always do a few weather stacks. I always want to talk about this when I talk about weather. I'll usually take about 10% of my lineups, sometimes 20% of them. This week it's going to be 10. I'm not going crazy on it. And I'll allocate them to either way, right? So this week I'm going to take 5% of them, put them on the AM stack, take 5, 1, and 6-0 stacks. Then in the afternoon wave, take that same 5% and take some 5, 1, and 6-0 stacks in that direction. So that's something I usually do because I'm a 150 max player. I'm always max entering these large field GPPs. That's my angle. That's, the type of player pool that I go with week to week. It's a little bit of a higher risk, but higher reward strategy. It's definitely paid off for me in the long run. I've won 3 GPPs on the golf side. It's well documented. I've won 5 GPPs for the NBA side. That's my main sport, something that I get asked to do content for it a lot. I just don't like doing it because it's like giving out my secrets, right? That's my main sport. So the key with these large field GPPs is to take down that top end upside, right? So I'm always stacking them just in case because I'm playing 150 lineups, right? I have the ability to do so. If you're playing a single entry, that sort of thing, I would not be playing a win stack. That just there's no reason to. It's not that big a difference. Like I said, it's like a 10 mile an hour difference at most at any one point there towards the morning versus afternoon there on Thursday. Whereas on Friday, it's like a 7 mile an hour difference, right? It's I don't know, it's apples to apples, right? And this forecast on Friday could flip. It could be a lot easier on Friday morning for all we know. For all we know, it could be harder on Friday morning, right? So that's why I'm just taking a small percentage of my lineups. Like I said, it's like 7 lineups, right? Each way that I'm stacking heavily. The rest of my lineups might naturally get a few 5-1s, a few 6-0s in there. But those are the only ones that I'm actually going to be forcing into my player pool. Another thing to note, this is a par 70. I don't think this should have blindsided most of the industry. Every piece of content I saw early in the week had this marked as a par 71 because every time they've played at the Renaissance Club, it's played as a par 71. Even some of the pieces of content, like on the PGA Tour website on Monday, first look, don't want to call them out too much, right? It said par 71. All of these, well-credited sources got it wrong. It's a par 70 now, guys. They took hole 7. They made it into a par 4. It's still 505 yards. So it was an extremely short par 5 to begin with. But this is going to make birdie production a little bit lower. And it's also a factor of why the winning score I've adjusted from like 23 under par down to 15 under par. Obviously, take 4 strokes right there, add it on to everyone's scores. That's what you would expect between the 4 rounds. But on top of that, the wind is also going to be a little bit more severe this year than what we've seen at the Renaissance Club for the last 3 Scottish Opens for the DP World Tour event. So just wanted to show that with the golf course. I mean, it's still, do they have the scorecard yardage on here? They don't. It's still like 7,300 yards. So it's not like the added or subtracted distance with that change. Just from the scoring perspective, we're not going to see 22 under par winning this, right? If you took that same score over the 4 rounds, that would have been 18 under par or 16 under par that won those 2 events before. So just understand when you're looking at the birdie production, everything like that. It's not necessarily because it's brutally difficult out there with the conditions. It's a lot due to the actual change of the scoring there. You have Robert down there in chat. What's going on? Hopefully you're doing well. Gary Cruz says, I read somewhere that Stenson is the best links course player. Yeah, there's a lot of stats to be had on that, but at the same time, he's also past his prime. A lot of those stats are being pulled from his career play. So you kind of got to look at the last 2 years, how he's played at link style golf courses. And if that holds up, then maybe get to them there, Gary. But I would imagine a lot of that is long-term. We got Wilson who says, who's your favorite long shot? We'll talk about them. There's a lot of DP World Tour players that I'm certainly getting to, especially in that 6K range. Adrian Otegi definitely rings a bell. John Catlin definitely rings a bell. But I don't want to give all of them away. Those are picks for the Patreon, obviously, but I like a lot of those sort of players. DP World Tour guys down low. Jack Fisher says, should Morikawa be faded with these windy conditions? He's one of like the only guys here. I'm going to bring up the player pool. Again, a lot of it is censored, guys. As I mentioned at the beginning of the slate here, I am playing Colin Morikawa. He is in the afternoon wave, but you can see I have my top end exposure rates over here. So on Patreon, everyone can see how much I'm playing of Colin Morikawa. It's a lot lower than it was earlier. So that has been tempered, but I'm still playing him because you have to remember he won the Open Championship out of the bad wave last year at Royal St. George's. So he has an ability to play in windy conditions. We've seen that from Colin Morikawa. And a lot of that's narrative based, right? I watch a lot of golf. So I have a pretty good read on how these guys play in different conditions. More often than not, Colin Morikawa isn't that affected by it because he hits a low ball. He's got that low penetrating ball flight, very consistent golf swing. He's very stable, right? You know, when it's windy, he's not going to be off balance like somebody like a Bryson or somebody that has a lot of foot movement to them. So like maybe Scotty Scheffler, right? When he's playing in windy conditions, he could struggle with his balance more because, like, I mean, if it's 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts, guys, you're going to feel that. It's going to be hard to stand straight when you're putting, that sort of thing, right? So somebody like Morikawa that's a balanced player, you know, it's anecdotally, right? It's me just speculating about it. I would imagine that's why he's a good wind player. A lot of people have talked about that, right? So, and as a golfer, I can tell you that when you're trying to play in wind, I can tell you as a Florida golfer, you have to have a stable base. I usually play a little bit of a wider stance. I'll choke down on the club a little bit and make sure that I'm controlling that flight, right? Trying to just, you have to stripe it when it's wind. If you get any spin on the golf ball when it's windy, you're just going to miss 30, 40 yards to the right. It's just going to exacerbate that spin. I think a lot of people don't realize that that's why playing in wind is difficult, is it makes your spinny golf shots worse. So if you're somebody who deals with issues off the tee because you hook it off the tee or something like that, those are only going to get worse in windy conditions. And especially, obviously, if it's coming from the right side, going with that hook, or even if it's going against it. I mean, it sends your ball a lot farther offline than you want it to. It's not a good thing to have happen out there. So, and I do like Colin Morikawa in windy conditions. That was a great question. There are guys, like I said, that I'm still playing out of that wave, but it's more of a consideration for the guys up top, right? So he's the only guy I'm playing out of that wave. You'll notice that guys like Matt Fitzpatrick, non my player pool, Xander Schauffele, they're also in that wave. Plenty of other guys that I'm fading the whole way down the board, also not going to be in that wave. And it's kind of like the tie-breaking factor, right? I'm not just fading Xander because he's in that wave. He's also, and again, I'm not going to give actual percentage numbers on it. He's the highest owned player at the slate. So there's a lot more to that, but it's a good differentiating factor, Jack. Nick Mars says thoughts on doing 50% AM, PM, and PM, AM. So going full out. So going just, I'm going to stack waves in either direction. You're bold. It's not that insane. We have seen that happen before, right? Where it's even if it's just by happenstance, right? Going into the week, we don't see that there's going to be huge advantage. Ends up being like a 1.5 stroke advantage. Nick, it's a heck of a ballsy strategy. I know you're okay with doing that sort of thing, but it could be effective. So I don't want to give you the green light there. Maybe the yellow light is what we'll call it there on the stoplight. But hey, it might make some sense. I guess Street kind of says, no one's talking about Justin Rose. Your thoughts? I think he's just a little bit overpriced. He's kind of sandwiched between solid plays. I mean, Max Homa, talked about him as a core pick. You guys know I absolutely love him. Throw a hand down here at $7,800. A lot of people have love for Keith Mitchell this week. Guys like Baronk are getting some steam. I mean, even Keegan Bradley, right? He's always going to get some attention. I think there's better plays around him. So for that reason, I think that's why he's being a little bit overlooked. So that's what I'll say about Justin Rose. I think it's because the guys around him are perhaps just better plays this week. But if you're looking for a low-owned leverage play, perhaps can make sense. We have Wilson that says, Luke Donland thoughts. Not sure who you're talking about there with Donland. So if you can go ahead and clarify, there's not somebody in this field named Donland that I just know about, right? No, not that I know of. Go ahead and let me know who you're talking about with that. Not sure who that is. And Head Sterling says, love Sam Burns this week. Yeah, so let me go ahead to the top of the board. Sam Burns at $9,200. Great price tag. I mean, that's really what attracted me to him at first. But I also expected it to play really easy. So he obviously went to the top of my modeling. But the more and more I look at the golf course, the more it seems like a driver-heavy golf course, where if you're driving it just better than everyone else, you're going to have short irons where everyone else has long irons. And if you're in the short stuff, I mean, you're going to have plenty of birdie looks. I mean, Sam Burns, that's what he does, right? He gets nuclear hot off the tee, and that's what carries his game. I think guys like him, I mean, I talked about John Rahm today as a sleeper pick. Those sort of players that have that bomber mentality have the ability and the firepower to take it low. So I definitely like Sam Burns this week, and guys like him that have that off the tee ability. Nick Marr says, I'm looking at my pool and I'm basically 50-50 on waves. So it was just a thought. You'll hear about the Discord if it's bad. Hey, it's a good thing to study because I've never done that before. I've never gone in that direction that heavily. I've done like 20%, 20% before, and it's been effective because it was a week where there was a massive difference, and I still took like 10% of the other wave just in case. I don't know. It could be a really good way to like take a stance, right? Where if one of them has a stroke and a half, maybe 2-stroke bias, something like that, you could win a lot of money, Nick. So we'll have to see. He says, what do you mean? You meant Damon? Yeah, if he meant Damon, I'm okay with it. He's pretty decent in wind. A volatile player. I would have liked him more if the winning score was going to be like 20 under par, but we'll have to see. Wilson says, Victor Hovland. I do like Victor. So Victor, first and foremost, Stillwater, Oklahoma. He knows how to play in some wind. So he's also, and I hate just saying that he's from Europe, so he's used to these conditions. But he grew up playing in windy-ass Norway. If you guys don't know, Norway, one of the windiest places in the world, kind of like Scotland, right? It's why it's known for this type of weather. If you grow up in those type of conditions, I can tell you, as somebody who's grown up in windy conditions down here in Florida, you learn how to play on those type of golf courses. So at $8,800, I do like Victor Hovland. It's not just that, though. It's also the fact that at the beginning of the year, everyone had a hard on for Victor Hovland. Everyone wanted to play him at like $10,000, 25% ownership. Now he's being completely slept on, super low owned. Also somebody who's $8,800. The last time he was this price was like before I can't even remember. It was like 2.5, 3 years ago. It was before the week before he was in the $8,000 range, he was $7,700. I mean, that's just blasphemous, right? That he was even $7,700 at one point, but he was an unknown commodity, right? And then he ended up rising to stardom. And I know he's had a few down months. I know lost his golf clubs. He's got all this stuff going against him. It just seems like the massive fuck you spot for Hovland to go out there and just shit on the field and win this golf tournament. I mean, because frankly, he likes these setups where it's not very hard around the green, where it's all fairway. If you look at a lot of the around the green shots out of the rough versus the fairway, he's one of the top players out of the fairway, one of the worst out of the rough, which is a little bit surprising for Victor Hovland. But maybe that's why he's had success at the Mayakoba Championship, of course, with shaved fairways around the green there. I had success at the Puerto Rico Open, another course with shaved fairways around the green. A lot of his wins have happened at courses like that. And all of those courses didn't have shot to gain metrics, right? So a lot of these stats aren't even pulling from those wins. And you expect those outliers to really carry that type of a stat, and that hasn't been the case. So I do think there's something to be said for these link style setups. Maybe Holland's going to be better around the green on them. I don't know. We haven't seen it yet. The other Open Championships, he hasn't played all that well, right? So it hasn't translated to success yet. But you guys know me. I'm willing to get on something early. I'm willing to take shots on people, willing to take narratives that other people won't, especially on relatively low-owned plays, like Victor Hovland, who's one of the lower-owned plays in this range here. I mean, there's guys like Joaquin Niemann that are single-digit owned, which is just ridiculous. But I like getting to him. I think he's worth a few looks, that's for sure, Wilson. There's my talk on Hovland. We have Cashman Ken says, Minmu my ass. Yeah, I'm not playing Minmu, that's for sure. He won here before. I think he's like 5% owned. Last time I checked, something around that in my projections. Yeah, I'll have 0% Minmu. Brady says, why are you fading Fitzy? So let's talk about Fitzy. So $10,100. I'm fading him first off because he's coming off the U.S. Open win. That's something that's going to derail more players often than sorry, I can't even speak right now. It's going to derail players a lot more often than not when they're going out there and playing after U.S. Open. But on top of that, he's playing out of the bad wave. He's kind of like a Xander Schauffele. He's playing in the PM wave, which, again, I'm not looking into too much. But when I'm comparing him against somebody, let's say like a Scotty Scheffler, who's, competing for that same type of exposure in my player pool, right? That 40% I want to, or whatever percent I'm playing of some of these players that I'm trying to take is being taken away by Matt Fitzpatrick if I play him. I can't play both of them because they're both going to be relatively high owned. And to get the leverage I need, I'm going to have to allocate at least a third of my lineups to get leverage there. So for me, I just like guys more that are playing in the better wave, the guys that are playing in the morning wave. On top of that, Matt Fitzpatrick's more expensive than he should be. He's normally like an $8,800 golfer, maybe $9,500 golfer at the very most in a shitty field. He's normally a lot lower owned. And I frankly think it's just because he won a major championship. So if he was low owned, if people were fading him like me because of that performance, because he was more expensive, was going to be a popular play, if that was kind of the sentiment around the industry, maybe I'd get to him as a low owned pivot, right? Go home. Maybe he does go back to back, right? But you're not going to be unique getting to Matt Fitzpatrick. So unless you absolutely love him this week, I don't see why you'd want to get to them. It's a chalky, more expensive Matt Fitzpatrick. just play him any other week, right? He's probably going to have a few bad performances here, as you'd expect after winning a major. He's probably going to go back to being like $9,000 and probably going to go back to being like 10% owned. Just play him when that happens, right? You don't have to play him when he's $10,000 in super chalk. I don't think he's just going to go on some type of like a crazy run there, to be honest. Nick Mars says, what about the other boo, Siwoo? I do like Siwoo Kim. You probably see him down there on the spreadsheet. He's got the game to, oh, sorry. Speaking of Gatorade, probably should take a sip here. But I don't hate Siwoo Kim. I always like taking a shot on Siwoo. He's got that madman mentality. Can win any golf course. I mean, he's won at the Players. He's won at the Amex. Two completely different setups. So both are Pete Dye designs, at least for two of the rounds there at the Amex. I just like where he just can get nuclear hot. There's just something to be said about a player that can get in the zone, and when he's playing his best golf, is almost unstoppable. And Siwoo Kim definitely checks that box emphatically. So if I'm looking to play a flyer pick, when he's in the $7,000 range, when he's also relatively low owned, I mean, that's like a lottery ticket. I mean, he's just got that upside that you're looking for. Whereas, I mean, let's look at guys priced around him, just to give you an idea here. And I don't mind talking about Siwoo Kim. You guys know I love Siwoo. Probably know he was in the player pool anyways. Let's see, guys around him. Thomas Dietrich. He's an okay play, but he doesn't have winning upside, in my opinion, right? Joel Damon, even, I don't think he can win this golf tournament. Harris English, he's not going to win in this type of field. Let's go down even further. Tom Hoagie's not winning in this type of field. Molinaris aren't going to win in this field. Siwoo Kim's like the only guy for at least another like $500, well, I'd say maybe like $300, that can actually win this golf tournament. I should say anyone can win this golf tournament a significant amount of time, like in terms of win equity, winning this golf tournament. And you're looking at like a legit 2% win equity, maybe 1.5% on somebody like Siwoo Kim. And all of that is due to his ceiling performances, which he seems to do once a year. He seems to put up that winning performance once a year. And, he's only playing like 20 something, maybe 30 something times a year. So you could argue his win equity is even higher than something like 1.5%, 2%. You could argue it's like 3% because every time he tees it up, he has that ability to take it nuclear low. So I like him there at $7,100. I just think the guys around him, a lot more would have to happen for them to win. And the only thing that has to happen for Siwoo to win is for him to show up and be that pristine version of Siwoo Kim. He's unbeatable when he's on those type of weeks. Roman says, hey, Luke, what do you like in some of your 3-ball matchups? So I cover that on my live stream. So I did a betting live stream yesterday. If you check out the replay for that, I talk about at least like 10 to 15 of them that I like. On here, just it's more of like the DFS stream. I can bring them up towards the end. So if you stick around towards the end and remind me, I'll definitely go ahead and show you the ones that I actually ended up firing on. But there were at least like 20 to 30 that I liked. But specifically, I ended up firing on like 10 to 12 of them. So I can go ahead and bring that up at the end for you, though, Roman. I'm definitely willing to do that. Jordan says, was really excited to play Grace as the late ads from Liv. Hearing some touts talk him up today, though. What are your thoughts on his ownership? So yeah, I'm off of Grace. So he's playing in the bad wave. That was kind of like what was the breaking point for me on him. But yeah, I think he's also going to be owned because he won overseas at the Liv. Plenty of people watched that golf tournament. He looked pretty good too at the other Liv golf event, and he's looked decent on the PGA Tour. Now, he's missed plenty of cuts. It's Brendan Grace. He's a madman, right? He's usually either in contention or missing the cut by 5 strokes. I don't hate that aspect for him, but I don't think you're going to be unique taking Brendan Grace this week. So yeah, I'm kind of with you there, man. I'm off of Brendan Grace. A lot of it is due to, like you said, a lot of people talking about him. I don't think he's going to be as sneaky as people are thinking. So yeah, that's what I'll say with that. Bev says, give us the real answer, Luke. What do you mean? It's because of his stupid braces. Yeah. You're talking about with Fitzpatrick. I love it. Why am I not playing Fitzpatrick? It's also because I have a grudge against him. He's not wrong about saying that. He's one of the few players on tour that I absolutely cannot stand. So Robert definitely hit the nail on the head there. And yeah, he wears braces and looks a little bit ridiculous doing so. Ray just says, I do like Siwoo. Siwoo. And Roman says, thank you. Yeah, but yeah, we'll do that at the end of the live stream for sure. Doc D says, who's your top play above 9K? Well, the obvious answer would be Scotty Scheffler, right? But I don't think you're looking for the obvious answer here, right? Doc D, what's the fun with that, right? If I have to give you a little bit of a more unique answer, ooh, I mean, if we're talking leverage play, I like Colin Morikawa, guys. I think the fact that he's playing in this afternoon wave, we're not going to be alone out there and trying to take guys from the morning wave more than the afternoon wave. He might be single-digit owned. I mean, it's not really that much of a hot take to say this. Colin Morikawa might be like 8-9% owned tomorrow. So in terms of like, if you're looking for the nuts up top, a player that could just break the slate, Morikawa is your answer, but the obvious answer is Scotty Scheffler for you. Certainly at $11,200, he makes a lot of sense. Let's talk a little bit more about the strategy here, though. So we talked about some of the plays. Let's talk about Cam Smith. Kind of like St. Burns, I absolutely like his putting upside. Also, his off the tee play. It's been a lot better of late than most of the times we're checking in on him. Jordan Spieth, talked about him as a core pick, but even more than anything, he's number 3 in the field in recent form ranking. I mean, just playing some solid golf, and no one wants to give him credit for that. Everyone wants to look at the missed cut. Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Everyone wants to, bash him for the missed cuts. The times where it's super public when he goes out there and kind of flops, like you saw at the Travelers. Didn't look very good at the US Open. Remember, he was sick, right? He was dealing with a stomach bug. Look before that, 7th place finish. He had a win. Just like 1 or 2 events outside of the sample size here. Top 20 at the Memorial. He's playing some solid golf. So I'm definitely willing to buy in on Jordan Spieth. You guys know I'm a sucker for playing Jordan Spieth to begin with. My favorite player on the PGA Tour. So I like taking him at $8,900, and I don't think he's going to be chalk either. I think you're going to be looking at like, I don't want to give the number, but low teens in terms of ownership. Again, I'm having to adjust for this whole Patreon thing, guys. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not going out there and spilling the beans too much, but I still want to make sure I'm going over some valuable information for you guys that are following the channel. We didn't talk about Ryan Fox. I did talk about during the fades video, though. I think he's going to be way higher up than he should be. He's already mispriced at $8,500. You could argue that he should be somebody in the mid 7K range, and that would make sense for his price tag. Even Moronk down here, where's Moronk at? Here at $7,700. He's probably more of like a $7,400 golfer. Now, I don't think you have to fade all of them, particularly guys like Moronk, who's not really getting all that much steam, but somebody like Ryan Fox, who's certainly getting a lot of attention this week, especially in terms of ownership. I probably want to fade that. Don't want to be on that if he's donkey chalk. Just, he's a good European Tour player. He's had 8 straight, or sorry, it's not 8 straight, something straight top 8 finishes, like 4 or 5 straight top 8 finishes, which is great, right? European Tour stuff. Guys get hot over there. Garrett Kigo won like 2 out of 3 events on the European Tour last year. Look at how they fare on the PGA Tour, right? Garrett Kigo, he misses the cut like 7 out of 8 starts that he makes over here. It's a different level of playing, different playing field. I mean, he should legitimately be a 7K golfer. So, I mean, if he was going to be 4 or 5% owned, if we were talking about a leverage play because Ryan Fox was overpriced at $8,500, which I think everyone would agree on, that he's definitely mispriced alongside a lot of these other PGA Tour studs. He's way too highly owned. I mean, there's other sites I've looked at that have him at like 20% projected ownership. I'm not that high on Ryan Fox. A little bit lower than that. I'll give you that. But I still think he's a fade. I still think that's way too high on him. And I bet him outright, guys. That's the one thing I'll say about Ryan Fox. I'm still kind of in on him. I mean, if he goes out there, he's first round leader tomorrow. I'm still going to celebrate that because I do have an outright ticket on my boy Ryan Fox. But I thought we were going to be sneaky. I thought he was going to be like 4% owned. I thought he was going to be at the sleeper picks video. I thought he was going to be like, oh, wow, you could take him, look at these starts on the DP World Tour, right? But that's not the case, guys. He's like 7 times more owned than I expected him to be going into the week. Let's see. We got Max Homa. Absolutely love him. He's another player who's mispriced, who I thought would be a lot higher owned than he is. And he's coming in reasonably owned. I think we can take him in like a quarter of your lineups, maybe a third of your lineups if you're feeling frisky, and get the leverage that you're looking for there. So I'll certainly be on Max Homa. We did have Harold Varner III withdraw. So that's what I'll say down here in the 7K range. I obviously took him out of the spreadsheet. Everyone knows that he withdrew down in the Discord, but if you had him in any lineups, make sure to get him out of there. Mito Pereira will be chalky, but I'm still on him. He hasn't come out of my player pool. I'll tell you guys that. $7,700. He's a top 10 model ranking. The points per dollar makes sense. Highest projected play on the slate, I believe, in terms of points per dollar. And the form isn't ideal, right? If we take a look at this down here, let's see, Mito Pereira, missed cut, right? This, I'm hoping, makes his ownership lower than we're projecting, right? Usually when a guy has 2 missed cuts in a row, it doesn't matter how well he projects or how well he models around the industry or how much people talk him up. The slapdicks will not play him. They won't get to him because they're like, oh, 2 missed cuts in a row. I can't do that, right? They'll think that he must be in terrible form. He hardly missed a cut in both those starts. I mean, in one of them, he battled back the last time out and almost ended up making the cut he ended up playing so well there on Friday. So I don't hate Mito Pereira at all. I think that realistically, he could be 20% plus owned, and it would make sense. I probably wouldn't play him at 20% owned, but I'd understand it. I'd understand why he was that chalky. He wouldn't be like chalk I'm telling you absolutely can't play. It'd be chalk that I'm not personally playing, but I'd understand it. Sebastian Munoz at $7,500. I love him even more now that HV3 is out of the player pool. So obviously they were at the same price tag. Excuse me. A lot of the exposure I had with HV3 is just going to add on to Sebastian Munoz, but a few other guys I added in the range above him too. A few guys below too. I talked about Chris Kirk. I will say he's in my player pool. I do like the ball striking numbers. The only reason he wasn't a featured value pick was because I was getting to HV3. So obviously I mentioned that during the value pick stream there. Somebody I will be getting to. Gary Woodland makes a lot of sense. I'll say that Maverick McNeely models out very similarly. So as you can imagine, he's also in my player pool up there. And I think he makes a lot of sense. Top 10 finished last week. Wasn't a golf course that I think he modeled all too well at, but we obviously took the shot on him, ended up paying off for last week. So what's to say that it happens again? I certainly think it's possible. In this range, there's quite a few DP World Tour players that I'm starting to get to. So like I said with Ryan Fox, I'm avoiding him because he's way overpriced, right? You could argue there's a few other guys here in the middle of the 7K range that are a little bit overpriced that are playing on the DP World Tour. When you start to get to the low sevens, high sixes, or even the mid sixes, there's a lot of them that I like. There's a lot of those players that, frankly, a lot of the casual fans don't know a lot about. And I'm going to be getting to in bunches. I mean, I'm not going to give you every single one. We'll talk about a few of them here on the stream, but there's going to be some plays that are just 5-6 times lower owned than they should be. Like they're going to be like 1.5-2% owned. And just to give you an example here, guys, there's Adrian House, right? Adrian House, great player off the tee. Very solid on these link style setups from what we've seen on the DP World Tour. I mean, he's at the same price as somebody like a Dylan Fratelli, right? And you go, oh, Dylan Fratelli's decent every once in a while. He's like a top 100 player in the world when he's playing solid golf. Arnaut's much better play this week, and almost guarantee you. I mean, this is somebody who's like a top 10, top 15 player on the DP World Tour. He's been in contention multiple times this year alone. I'd much rather take these type of players that are kind of on their home turf this week than these kind of half-assed PGA Tour players. And, you know, I'm a huge critic of the DP World Tour, of the European Tour, what I used to say about them. And, you know, I call them the minor leagues, right? They're the AAA when the PGA Tour is the major leagues, right, at this point. Might even argue that they're the AA now, right? The Live Tour is the AAA when it comes to these minor league systems now. But in either circumstance, guys, Arnaus, I think that they're going to get disrespected this week in terms of ownership. And I'd argue that somebody like Fratelli probably going to be significantly higher owned than Arnaus too. So it's not just, you know, a one-to-one in terms of their pedigree. It's also factoring in ownership, right? So a lot of these low-owned DP World Tour players I'll be getting to. John Catlin, definitely worth a few looks. I like him there. Campillo, I've heard a lot of people talk about him this week. Max Kiefer, I've heard a lot of people mention his name this week. Jason Scrivener, I've heard a lot of people mention. Let's see. Guido Migliozzi is everyone's favorite. Of course, played well at the U.S. Open. Pavon, I've heard his name thrown around. Otawegi, another player I've heard thrown around a lot. Matthew Jordan, Sammy Valimaki. All of these players, they show up on the European Tour quite often. Now, they're not guys that are world beaters, like a Ryan Fox, who's finished in the top 8 for however many finishes in a row. But they're guys that finish in the top 10, top 25 quite often, a lot more often than a lot of their PGA Tour counterparts down here in this price range. So if you're a buyer in that home field advantage, the fact that these players are used to these conditions, then I think taking shots down in this range makes sense. I'm not going crazy on it, though. There are plenty of PGA Tour studs I'm taking. Just give me an idea. Kurt Kitayama, absolute stud. I mean, the model absolutely loves him this week. Going to have him in bunches down there. Move down a little bit further. We've got guys like Garrick Higo, right? I know I'll give him shit and whatnot, but he's been okay on the PGA Tour from time to time. Maybe worth a few looks. Let's see. Stuart Stink, right? He makes quite a bit of sense. Great ball striker down here. Towards the top of the 6K range, there's even more of these PGA Tour guys. You can see towards the bottom of the 6K. Brendan Wu, right? You got Novak down here at 6K. All these type of players that, you know, we're used to seeing. I don't hate getting to. These are PGA Tour level players. Towards the top of the 6K range, you got Ricky Fowler. I actually don't hate him this week, that's for sure. You got Russell Knox, pretty decent player in windy conditions. He's from Scotland. Might be worth a few looks if you think the conditions are going to be real tough out there. Let's see, Straka, Ryan Palmer. Like these are all sort of plays that I'm probably seeing myself getting to out there this week. Just a lot of them playing in the morning wave. That obviously helps a lot of their cases. And more than that, they're just better than their peers. It's a mispriced board. I mean, no offense to Fabrizio Zanotti, but he should not be $6,800. No offense to Biokim, he shouldn't be $6,600. No offense to Will Bessling, he shouldn't be $6,600. No offense to Grant Forrest, he shouldn't even be $6,400. There's quite a few guys that are just completely mispriced out there. So that's kind of how I'm handling this range. I'm just sticking my flag in guys that either model well or we've seen play well in terms of finishes on the DP World Tour, and I'm moving that direction. I'm not looking too much at their skill sets, right? I'm not a DP World Tour professional. I mean, I'm not watching it every single week. I don't know them like I know these PGA Tour guys, but I can look at their finishes, and I pay attention to it enough to understand what guys are showing up more often than not on leaderboards. And those are the guys that I'm personally taking this week. Let's catch up on questions. Look like quite a few of them are down there in chat now. Let's see what we got. We got Nick Mars asking about Willett. I'm not a huge Willett guy this week, but he did play well at the Alfred Dunhill, which I believe is at a similar type of golf course to what we're getting this week. So could look at that. Of course, he's an Englishman. So if you're going to look at any type of a links narrative, I think he would have that going for him. Street Pound says Poulter is being talked up. He has the course history, but I think he'll focus on his off week. Your thoughts? I'm not huge on him because he's in the PM Wave 2. So he was one of the guys when I was cutting down my player pool that ended up actually moving out of it. So I'm not a huge fan on Poulter, but I understand it. He was in my player pool for a reason, right? He was somebody I was considering at one point, but I'm not on at this point. So I would agree with you there. My main issue with Poulter has been his form. He has not looked very solid for quite some time. And on the Live Tour, didn't look all that good either. So, and of course, the competition level over there is a lot lower than what we're going to see this week. So if you can't play well on the Live Tour, probably don't want to expect it this week either. Gary Kerr says, thoughts on McIntyre? I'm pretty sure I spelled his name wrong. Actually, pretty sure you got it right, actually. So pretty solid on that. It's a hard name to spell. I've definitely misspelled it a time or two on my projections. But on top of that, I like him. It's a hometown kid. One of those DP World Tour guys that I definitely think is worth consideration. He's a higher pedigree player too. We've seen him at WGCs. We've seen him at major championships numerous times at this point of his career, and he holds up, right? We know that he can compete in those level of events. He's been in contention a few times to this point. Why he hasn't actually cashed in, we haven't seen a top 5, a top 10 finish from him at those high caliber events. I think we're going to see one sooner rather than later. Maybe here at the Scottish Open, who knows? We have Chris Palmer says, do you like Fox and Neiman in cash? I don't like Fox as much because I think he's mispriced. I think you're paying way too much of a premium on Ryan Fox. Neiman, I do like in cash. I think Neiman has a relatively high floor because of his ball striking upside. For him, he's just got to bring the irons to the table. He's going to make putts. He's going to gain a ton of strokes off the tee. It's just whether he can gain 2 to 3 strokes with those irons, bring that end to the ball striking. So I do like Neiman. I think he has the upside and the floor you're looking for. Wilson says, do you like Troy Merritt? I'm not a huge Merritt guy this week. I'll be honest with you there. Chris Palmer says, thoughts on Poulter in cash? I think Poulter in cash lineup. So it's not ownership based. So who cares if people have been steaming him up? I don't know if I can get there, to be honest. The form on the Live Tour didn't look all that good, and he didn't look all that good on the PGA Tour. So he could go out there and really stink it up this week, or you could see a high upside play from him if he just snaps out of it. But for cash, I'm trying to take more of the proven commodity approach. So I'd probably avoid him, to be honest. Yang says, who is your favorite this week? Let me see. So favorite player, that would definitely be Scotty Scheffler. I would take it. I've taken an outright bet on Scotty Scheffler. Really like him. John Rahm, I really like from the outright perspective too. Also like him in DFS. So those would be the 2 favorites. If you're talking about incorporating price, ownership, all that sort of fun stuff, my favorite DFS play, and not the one I'm owning the most, right? There's a difference between my favorite play and the one I'm owning the most, is Colin Morikawa. I'm not going to be playing an outrageous amount of Colin Morikawa, but I think he has slate breaking upside. And you might need to be there if he wins this golf tournament, that's for sure. Gary Kerr says, also, what are your thoughts on Keith Mitchell? High upside play, high risk play. I personally don't have room for him in my pool, but I was considering it. I will tell you that, Gary. If Guillermo says, what about Hao Tong Lee? Is he a good fit? I don't want to give too much away about Hao Tong Lee, but he's a good player. He's a high upside player. So yeah, I like him. Gary Kerr says Jordan Smith is the truth. Jordan Smith, interesting. I have an outright bet on him. So kind of like Ryan Fox, I have an outright bet there. I personally am kind of teetering on whether to play him or not this week. As of right now, I believe he's in my latest set of crunches, but we'll have to see. I'm going back and forth on him. We have a bot down there in chat. Okay. Let me go ahead and block them. Sorry about that, boys. We have multiple bots. Wow. They're really going at it, boys. If anybody wants to be a moderator that has been here for a long time and wants to like ban these people as they happen, let me know down in chat. And you know who you are. I'm talking about who's like been here for a while and that I talk about with in Discord a lot. Let me know and I'll give you those permissions right now to take care of those people. Jack Fisher says, I think Matthew Jordan might be a good for top 20 at 200 to 1. Not one on the DP World Tour, but apparently he's good on links courses. So maybe not the outright. I think that might be pushing it a little bit because of some of the top end players we have from the PGA Tour here. But I love what you're thinking with the top 20. If you're going to take a shot on these DP World Tour guys from the outright perspective, I shouldn't say the outright, just the betting perspective, like a top 10 or top 20 market, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I would agree with you there. Yeah, Street Pound says thoughts on Moronk. I like him. He's coming in with solid form, obviously coming in off the latest win. Grant Forrest, I have zero interest with, to be honest with you. And Roman says, yeah, we have a scammer in here on chat. Yeah, I'm trying to ban them when I see them. Corey says, who are your top 3 must plays this week? Ooh, must plays. I mean, my 2 are Scotty and Rom, right? I like them a lot. And I like Colin Morikawa. I'm just going to go with this 3, guys. If you ask my top plays, those are my top 3 plays. Street Pound says, do you think Aaron Rye's motivation to qualify for the Open will be a positive or a negative? I think a lot of people would like to win this event, go out there and end up getting into the Open Championship, but I'm not sure how realistic it is. So I don't look at that too much, to be honest. It may be worth using for a tiebreaker, something like that, but I wouldn't be using it as like a key differentiator in your player pool. Maybe just something to use as a tiebreaker. We have Chris Palmer's thoughts on the cash lineup: Xander, Spieth, Fleetwood, Homa, Rye, and Jordan. Spieth. Oh, sorry. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Someone else with 7,400 left. That makes sense to me, Chris. That type of lineup, to be honest. Yeah, I don't mind that you have Xander in there because it is a cash lineup. Corey says, "Do you like Rose this week?" I don't like him. Jason says you'll moderate. Yeah, let me see if I can give you it now. Well, let me do it right now, Jason. But I'm going to add you as one. A few other people I'm going to add as moderators too, going forward because yeah, that was annoying, guys. Obviously, I'm not promoting those little sex bots or whatever they're putting down there in chat. Anyways, let's talk through some more strategy. Of course, we'll hop back in the questions when they come up and see what we got. So we talked about the top end range. There's guys that I'm planning my flag in that I really like. We talked about the mid-tier range a bit too. There's a lot of PGA Tour guys that I like in this range, but also quite a few DP World Tour guys, particularly towards the bottom of the 7K range that start to creep into lineups. And honestly, guys, I have guys the whole way down to $6,000. Like I'm taking shots on players this week at $6,100. I have players 62, 63, the whole way up here in the 6K range. I believe at least 10 to 15 players in my player pool are in the 6K. You have plenty of 7K golfers too. Really, where I'm condensing my player pool is up top here. Not taking that many shots on guys. There's plenty of guys I'm fading. Obviously, like a Fitzpatrick, Xander, I talked about, but there's more than that, obviously. There's a few other fades in this range, which, unfortunately, guys, I can't talk about everybody in the player pool that I'm not getting to, that I'm taking stances against this week. And some of them harder than others. Some of them are hard to make. Some of them are extremely hard to make in terms of fades, but some of them are really straightforward, like the Xander Schauffele fade. I mean, he's the highest owned player in the slate. More often than not, I'm going to fade that player. And if I end up playing the highest owned player on the slate, it's usually going to be like well over the field, at least 50, 60%, if not locking them into all 150 lineups. So that's what I got from that perspective. What I'm going to do now, actually, because I just remember this, guys, we're going to talk about the Barbasol Championship because I know a lot of you degenerates out there definitely going to enter some lineups for that too. So we're going to go through the player pool for that a little bit. If you do have any questions about the Scottish Open, do not be shy at all to go ahead and put them down in chat. We will be going back to those to cover them. But just to take a quick aside here, we'll talk about the Barbasol for a little bit. We got Jeffy says, I'm getting a lot of the bottom of the 9K range. Yeah, I love the 9K range. I think I talked about it on my core picks. It's my favorite part of the entire slate. CBO says, are you excited for the tourney? Yeah, after we get off stream, finishing all of my lineups, getting my set of 150 done, and then going to bed. I'm going to sleep for like 3-4 hours, whatever I end up being. Wake up there at like 2 a.m., make sure that there's no withdrawals, that sort of thing, and watch the tournament. I'm going to have plenty of coffee, that sort of thing to keep me through the night, and then try and get my schedule on tap for waking up at 2 a.m. It's going to be interesting. We'll see. And Hef says, can you do a recap with who you took outrights to first rep bets? Yeah, I'm going to do that at the end. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go into the Barbasol. So let's talk about some of the Barbasol guys here. Oh, where did Draftkings go? 1 second, guys. I got to bring Draftkings back up. My tab with it went away. Not fair. What are they doing here? They're messing up my live stream. All right, there we go. Got the Barbasol up. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me bring this up. And what I'm going to do here is just talk through like the guys I'm getting to. We're not going to talk about every player in my player pool. Personally, I'm only playing one lineup. So I'm going to give you like the 10, 15 guys that I would even consider playing this week. Just know I'm not playing all of them, right? I'm playing one lineup, but I'm not going to give you the 6 players I'm playing. I'm not letting you guys dupe me in my single entry contest, that whatnot. So at the top of the board, Goddard's going to be like 40% owned. Svensson's going to be like 50% owned potentially at $9,500. No one's going to play Streelman. I don't think many people are going to play Hubbard. I don't think many people are going to play the 9K range, like at all. Like guys like John Hadley, going to be like super duper low owned. I don't have enough balls to take these guys that are going to be single digit owned. But if you're playing in a large field contest, which there's not that many of them for the Barbasol Championship, like, and you really want to win first place, it's take these guys in the 9K range that no one wants to take, which I think there's a reason why no one wants to take them. But hey, if you have the balls to do it, then go for it. Like Lee Hodges, guys, $9,000. Like, what kind of world do we live in where Lee Hodges is $9,000? So you can see why I'm only playing single entries on this for this week. Let's talk about some of the guys that I like, though. So, well, as much as these guys are overpriced, like here in the 9 and 8K range, you go down here to the 8Ks, or let's say lower 8Ks, maybe the top of the 7K, guys start to make a lot more sense. And this is really where I want to live, right? There's going to be a few guys up here in the 10K and 9K range that I like. Pendrith is one of them. Absolutely love Taylor Pendrith this week. I do like getting to Hubbard. I think that he makes sense at $10,000. I mean, Streelman, not the worst play either at $10,500. You know, you take 2 out of those 3 players, and then you just pepper the 7K range, right? You just skip all of these scrubs that are just 3K overpriced, not 3K, at least 2K overpriced there in the 9K range. But I like Smotherman. You guys know I absolutely love this kid. I think he has upside. I love Michael Thompson at $8,000. I think he makes a lot of sense. James Hahn at $7,800. He seems to love these really shitty fields. Moving down into the middle of this range, somebody I had to skip there. Rage, you know who I'm talking about. Justin Lauer, $7,300. He makes quite a bit of sense. Let's see. Dylan Wu. I like him at this type of field. Hate to say it, but Brian Stewart, I'd even play his bum ass at this type of field. He's $7,000. That makes sense. He could be $8,000 and it probably makes sense at this field. There's guys that are mispriced here. So try and take the guys that are clear values. Harry Higgs could very well be $8,000. I like getting to him. Let's see what else we got. There's more of them, I promise. There's quite a few here I like in the bottom of the 6K range. Even Curtis Thompson at $6,700. He played pretty well at the Travelers. Moving down even further here, guys. Seth Reeves at $6,400. That's like a fair price tag for a normal field for him. So in this shitty field, sure, I'll pay $6,400 for Reeves. Let's see what else we got. I mean, it's really bad down here at the bottom of the 6K range. Yeah, I mean, that's probably it. To be honest, I'm probably not willing to go down to actual rock bottom on this field. But even in the 7K range here, Doc Redman, I absolutely love. I think he's got some upside. Again, somebody I have to skip down there. I refuse to talk about. I'm not going to spill the beans on my favorite play this week. Tyler Duncan at $8,500. Sam Ryder, 88. Even Lee Biota at $8,900. Not the worst things in human history, but these guys in the 9K range are just absolutely dog shit. Taylor Moore, $8,600, dog shit. Sig's like $6,200 normally. He's $8,400. Just, I mean, Austin Cook, guys. This is like a $6,100 golfer, and he's $8,200. Just, it's clear who not to play this week. But if you're in like the 150, and there's not even a 150 max for this event, so I can't even justify playing those people. Just don't play the dog shit players. It's that simple when it comes to the Barbasol, and it's not that difficult to go through the player pool and figure it out. Like if I was playing 150 lineups, it would be a print fest because you can just at least cancel out 90 to 100 players of the pool just based on pure. I mean, who the hell is Julian Brune? Like I know he's a DP World Tour player, right? Look at that, all his miscuts. Oh, top. You know, maybe I gotta put some respect on his name. He has a top 10 finish. I was gonna say, does he even have a top 10 finish on the DP World Tour? But he's up here at $7,900. Like, I don't know. There's just clear pivots to be made, right? We know James Hahn, relatively solid player. We know guys like Tyler Duncan, a lot better ball striker than trying to take shots on guys we don't even, aren't even familiar with. Like I said, I watch the DP World Tour from time to time, but I don't know who guys like Julian Brun are. Like, I'm not familiar with his game, right? I don't know if he's a bomber, that sort of thing and whatnot. Just stick to your guns, stick to what you know. There's plenty of DP World Tour guys you can take shots on here, so I guess we'll talk about a few of them. A few of them that I'm definitely not going to talk about here, that's for sure. A few of them that I am saving for myself. But let's talk about a few of them that make sense. Lorenzo Vera, he shows up quite often on the DP World Tour. Absolutely love him. Flavin, he's not a DP World Tour player. A Monday qualifier. He obviously played well last week. Ended up showing up, ended up getting into this field because of that. Moving down further, Lingworth, I guess he's not a DP World Tour player, but he's played some solid golf on the PGA Tour of late. Let's see what we got. Marcel Siem, we saw him at the Open Championship last year. He played well. Maybe worth a few looks in this strength of field. I'm surprised he's not over there at the DP World Tour side. I guess he's not having the best year. And guys, by the way, guys, the reason why guys on the DP World Tour are in this field is because they're not in good form, or else they would be in the other field. So keep that in mind. Gavin Green, he showed up on the DP World Tour a few times. Per Torres, not the worst player at $6,500. Pretty solid from that side of the pond. Let's see what else we got. No one there I'm really getting to. I mean, yeah, down towards the actual bottom of the board, guys, it's slim pickings. It's gonna be hard to pick guys, but there's a few other names here in the 7K range. Again, I don't want to spill all the beans on my lineup. There's a few guys that I've left out of here because I'm playing them and I don't want them to be highly owned, but you guys get the point. Just take the guys that have the modeling that you're looking for, the guys that you're familiar with. Pendrith, smash play. I absolutely love him here. Mark Hubbard, I think he's going to be super low owned because he's $10,000. Guys like Leviota, Sam Ryder, we talked about, Tyler Duncan. I'm just trying to take the guys that have actually shown ball striking in PGA Tour level fields. In a field of this strength, they could gain 10 strokes ball striking at it. It's all relative to the field when it comes to those ball striking stats. And I think a lot of those type of players are going to show out this week. Now, Svensson, right? I kind of talked about him and Goddard as chalk. I don't think you have to avoid them, particularly if you're playing in a single entry, but that's just going to be my stance this week. I think in single entries, you might see 50% plus ownership on both of those plays, or at least close to it with both of those plays. And for me, it's just not something that I'm willing to get to. It's just a way too high of an ownership number there. Oh, we got more bots down there in chat. You'd love to see it. Let's catch up on the questions down there. Let's see what we got. Oh, you got CBO says he's not going to sleep. Yeah, I'm probably not either. I'm going to do my best, though. I'm going to try to go sleep here in about an hour. Gary says he's out. Thank you, Luke. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Thanks for having you, Gary. Nice to have you here. Roman says, Luke, are you waking up at 3 a.m. to watch coverage? I certainly am. And yeah, it's 2 a.m. actually, Roman. So make sure you get up even earlier. I think it's like 2:15 a.m. I'll be up there for sure. It looks like CBO says he'll be up. Chris Palmer will be up too. That's great. And yeah, dude, I'm playing Brian Stewart only on the Barbasol slate. I'm not going to play him on the big PJ Tour slate. Hell no. I hate Brian Stewart. Cannot stand the guy. But yeah, I'll be playing him. And I can see you don't like him either. I agree with you there, though. Chris Palmer says in cash locks, where's Spieth? Okay, so let me let me do that. If your cash locks were Spieth, Fleetwood, Homa, and Rye, I don't really want to give you two plays, to be honest with you, Chris, but a lot of the guys we talked about would make sense there. Hep Sterling says the size of the field is crazy. Surprised Happy Gilmore isn't in the field. Yeah, particularly for that Barbasol Championship field. And yeah, I know he's back. I think we banned him. We got him out of here. And CBO says, how do they know? I have no idea. I don't know how they just keep joining in here. Some streams, they end up doing it on more than others. I've seen a lot of like the bigger DFS streams out there. They get them like on every single live stream. I guess that just means I'm starting to get more traffic. There's more people, more impressions going out there. We're going to channels. I guess what that means. So, hey, is what it is there. Nick Mar says, my normal alarm is 3 a.m., so this is easy. Finally getting up early will make sense. Lucky you, dude. I'm waking up at 8:30, 9 a.m. So it's going to be a rough morning for me. But like I said, hey, I'm just going to smash a huge dinner after this. Just try and get as sleepy as humanly possible. Take a couple melatonin gummies, right? And then just try and sleep until 2 a.m. It's a great field, too. It doesn't help, how excited I am for this event because it has all these top players in it. We'll have to see. Hopefully I can get some sleep. Going to be easy for you, though, Nick. Lucky you. Jeff Oswald says, what will you do if Pendrith withdraws again? Is what it is. Hey, man, it's DFS. Shit happens, right? But hey, he got back in the field. He's been practicing all week. I've heard decent things about it. I'm not expecting that to happen again. But if it happens, it happens. It's DFS. At least when he played him the other week, I played him in like 30% of lineups. I still had 70% of my lineups live, right? So I wasn't drawing dead in the water. Tomorrow he is in my single entry, and if he withdraws, he will be in 100% of my lineups because I'm only playing one lineup. So be a little bit more hurtful there, Jeff, but I don't think it's going to happen. Make sure you say some nice prayers to make sure it doesn't happen tonight if that's your sort of thing. Excuse me. And lastly, the last comment we'll do before we end up finishing this is, you see, I got over 2K subscribers. Congrats. Well, thanks, man. Yeah, we hit that about a week ago. It was a nice milestone to hit. But now we're going to get to 5,000 subscribers. So about 9 months ago, I was at like 100 subscribers. I like really wanted to get to 1,000, right? I got to 1,000 about 3 months ago. I was like, I really want to get to 2,000, right? And I did that in like 2 to 3 months. We have 6 more months. I'm not just doubling up. We're going for 5,000, if not 10,000 subscribers. Who knows how far we can push this? I'm going to work my ass off to get it done. So if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, make sure you do it. I'm trying to get to 10K as soon as possible. And I have these high aspirations, right? I'm trying to be a big channel out here. I don't care if there's channels that are only like 5,000 subs. They've been around for 7 years. If I can do it in less than a year and a half, all power to me, right? Hey, it'd be a pretty good accomplishment on my end. So I have these lofty aspirations, and I like sharing them with you guys, right? Those are my goals here for the channel. That's what I'm working towards, right? Try and make this thing a pretty big operation. Maybe bring on some extra content creators, right? People that are looking to get into the space themselves. Maybe I can grow my platform to where I can raise them up with me, right? That's going to be the goal going forward. That's the long-term goal, at least, guys. So I appreciate everybody who stopped by. Best of luck with all of your lineups for this week. If you guys have any, well, I should say, sorry, bad way to say this. If you guys want to see all of my projections, you want to see all of the players in my player pool, all of my ownership projections, everything that was censored throughout the video, you know where to find it. It's on my Patreon page. A link is down in the description of the live stream to go ahead and check it out. It is $10 a month to join, but I can guarantee you, you're probably going to make that back in at least the first few days. We had people that joined last weekend, and just based on the, frankly, just the prize picks videos I did on Tuesday for the JP McManus, people won like 10 times their yearly subscription back. So I know it's $10 a month, which isn't cheap, right? It's not peanuts by any means, but you're going to get a lot of value out of it. I can almost guarantee you that. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate all the support here. Make sure you smash that like button too. Don't just subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys for next week.